This is an English podcast. My name is Vladimir Sutashev, and my guest today is Andy Chamberev. Hi, Andy. How is it going?
Yeah, everything's all right. Thank you for asking. What about you?
Well, I'm really excited about today's podcast. Let's start from a question. Tell me about your experience in studying English.
Well, my experience would be different from most people, especially in your country, because when I was 5 years old, my parents just took me from Russia and they brought me all the way over to London. And I've lived in London for about 17 years. I began my education in England in an English school, so I just naturally picked up the language without really thinking about it. But the problem then came that I forgot Russian. So I was sent to Russia to my grandparents for a year so that I could study Russian. And then I was sent back to England.
What was your age when you...
So I was about 7 when I was back. Yeah, so I was back in Russia. I was back in London. I studied in a different school in the east of London. It's okay, I don't remember the exact... No, Rokeby School. There you go. Rokeby School in Stratford, which is East London. And I studied there for almost a year, but my mother wasn't happy with the level of education that I was getting. So I was moved to the Russian Embassy School. So it's a diplomatic school for children of diplomats. But if you pay, you can get in privately. Now, currently, that's no longer the case. They do not accept any private students. So I was lucky back in the past. I studied there till year 9, and then I decided, why the hell do I need Russian exams if I live in England? So I went to City of Westminster College. I did business, maths, communication, and culture, and I did my English GCSE just so that I can have an English exam certification, but I still had to do an English exam when I was getting my British citizenship. So there is a Life in the UK test, and then there is an English exam test, which is very close to what TOEFL is, but it's only like 20 minutes, and you only do speaking English. Like, you don't do any writing or reading. Yeah. So, but it feels the same way a TOEFL test would feel if you're doing the speaking. So you have a few topics, and yeah. So for me, I never really studied English. The last couple of years, I began studying grammar, but in order to be able to explain it to Russian students. And I have a really good perspective because I simply understand how the languages work. So I understand an English sentence, and I understand how Russians would say it. So there are a few grammar topics, where I totally disagree with what your books say, and I have my own very basic and simple explanation. And I know that it works because my students get like amazing marks, and they do VPRs with no mistakes. And my sixth graders, they do OGE. And one of your most important exams within your country, kids are doing it when they study with me. So,
can you tell how much time did it take for you to be able to speak English after you moved to London?
Well, I picked it up pretty quickly. I guess when I was still 5 or maybe 6, I was speaking English. I had to, because if you're in a school and you're surrounded by people who don't speak your language, you kind of just pick things up the same way any child learns how to talk. I mean, you say ma, pa, give, take, help. You just have words, then you have phrases, then you start to build sentences, people correct you, and you sort of progress in that way.
Did you start studying when you moved there, or you was trying to prepare before?
Oh, no. There was no preparation. It was just we packed our things, we moved out of the country because it wasn't safe. I mean, it was the end of the 90s. And yeah, we just came to England. I don't know all of the details, of course, but somehow I got into an English school, and life
it was just like natural. You didn't really do anything special.
No.
Or try to read books, do exercises.
Absolutely not. No, it's just
in your family, your parents were talking English.
They spoke. We spoke English within the family most of the time. There was a little bit of Russian, so that's why I lost my Russian because nobody practiced Russian with me. And my parents, they really tried to make an effort not to have a Russian accent. So for me, pronunciation was always given in the proper way. But again, I was listening to English people, so I can copy English people. Whereas here, any child who's studying in a school is just repeating whatever their teacher is telling them to do. Well, I'm trying, and before I moved to Russia, I couldn't do a Russian accent, but now I think it is very, very good, and I'm very proud of my Russian accent. And if I go back, I can scare some friends, or if I speak to the police.
That sounds amazing.
There's one real good joke that I've heard from an American comedian. It's like, if he's ever in a area where he's not confident or not comfortable, and if somebody approaches him and they say, "Yo, do you know what kind of neighborhood you're in?" He just says, "You think this bad neighborhood? You should see Russian neighborhood." And yeah, that's a way of him to be this sort of scary dude. It's just by putting on a Russian accent.
How you try to study different languages, like some German, Chinese?
Yes. So
in school, in English school, what was the second language?
We don't have don't have secondary languages in English schools. You can take a secondary language if you have if you speak a secondary language in your family. So a lot of like Spanish kids, they do Spanish, but they don't really study Spanish. They just do the exams because their vocabulary and knowledge is so much more advanced than what the system requires them to know. So it's the same as for a Russian child to be doing like words and pictures and connecting the dots. So the exam is very easy. But in the Russian embassy school, we had to take a second language. So you either had French, German, or Spanish. And I, for some stupid reason, decided that German is bad because I'm Russian. I shouldn't speak German. And I took French. I know nothing of French except for bonjour, je m'appelle André, and maybe a few other words like le pantalon. I don't know why, but I remember le pantalon. It's like
what
trousers. Trousers,
okay.
yes. It's like I remember trousers in bloody French. That's useful. I know a few phrases in... so yeah, I learned French in school, but that was a total waste of time. Then I learned a few phrases from Spanish. Hizo usted español un poco, habla español un poco. Hizo usted norteamericano, which like all it means like, I speak Spanish a little bit, I understand Spanish a little bit, I'm from North America. Whatever. I studied German, and I studied German for a long time, but then I gave up when I realized that there are too many articles. Like, the is complicated enough, but having the plus all of these other masculine and whatever, it's like, no, thank you. We've got genders in Russian, and that's enough. So German, I was like, yeah, I quit German because I was like...
How long have you been studying?
Half a year. I used to know a lot of words. I used to be able to make a lot of sentences. But then when I realized that I'm never going to be perfect with the articles, I was like, let's give up. I began Korean. I used to know how to read Korean, and I still know the alphabet. Gana, Dara, Ma, Basa.
What's the purpose to study Korean?
Because I liked the way it's written. So whenever you look at like these Asian languages and they have all of their symbols, Korean has a lot of like zeros and straight lines, and it's like, ooh, that looks beautiful. It's like, what the hell is that? And it's like Korean, and apparently...
Why Korean, not Japan or Chinese?
I did do Japanese for a little bit. So Chinese I know is too difficult, so I decided not to touch it. My children will definitely speak Russian, English, and Chinese. But yeah, with Korean, I started to learn Korean. I learned and memorized all of the symbols and how to read, but I just never learned any of words or grammar or anything. So if you learn the alphabet, the Korean alphabet, you can learn to read within minutes, because everything sounds exactly how it's written.
Have you tried some special methods, or like what was the way you studied these foreign languages? Like what you do exactly?
Well, with Korean, it was basically I wanted to learn the alphabet. And then I learned some
How many
words.
like characters are there in Korean?
Well, actually, Gana.
What does it mean alphabet in Korean?
No idea. Like Gana Dara Ma Ba Sa Aja Cha Ga Cha Ba Ha. So it looks like they've got 14 consonants and maybe 5 vowels. And they have a weird system where it's like a mathematical table where consonants connect with a vowel and you make a sound. But again, it's pretty simple to read it once you know all of the symbols.
Are North Korean and South Korean are the same languages?
They might have slight differences like British and American, but I think they speak the same language, yes. And with Japanese, with Japanese, I basically just studied. Again, I tried to study they have 3 alphabets in Japanese. They have kanji and they have 2 other things, and they look pretty cool. And I learned just a few phrases like "Ohayo gozaimasu," "Konbanwa," "Konnichiwa."
Konnichiwa, I know this. There was a movie.
Konnichiwa. Yeah, everyone knows like "Konnichiwa." "Ohayo gozaimasu" is good morning. "Konnichiwa" is good afternoon, and I think "Konbanwa" is good evening.
I tried to remember there was good night. I knew this was Saminasai. No.
It sounds familiar.
Yeah, I knew. I was just one phrase.
Yeah, and it's like the one of my
okay, that's
maybe one of my favorite words in Japanese would be "nani," just because you see it in every anime. Nani means what. It's like you would have a character and he's surprised, and then you hear the sound "nani," and then the English subtitles "what." So Nani, everyone on the internet knows Nani.
German, French, just school
studied
program.
German for myself. School was only French. Everything else was purely my interest. Spanish, Korean, Japanese, and German.
Like
for myself.
What did you do?
With German, the only reason I began learning German was because of a song by Mo Trip. Like the artist is called Motrip. And I have So Wie Du Bist, I think it's called So Wie Du Bist, and that song sounded so beautifully that I decided, why am I not learning German? And I just began learning German.
Okay, so it's memorizing words?
Memorizing, yeah, just learning the alphabet. If I were to do it now, I would probably try to do the same thing as I teach English, so I would learn the to be part. So I know du bist, ich bin, so bin, bist are very similar to like am, is, are. So I would probably go off of that structure, but I didn't have a teacher. I've never had a teacher for my German. I've had, most things in my life would probably be self-taught, like just reading books and repeating what others do and making my own mistakes so that I can grow from them.
What type of content do you consume now in English? What do you watch, read?
Well, I've quit reading a very long time ago. I do audiobooks because unlike some people, I can easily multitask. I can like do the cleaning and do all of the house chores while I'm listening to a podcast or while I'm listening to an audiobook. Whereas if you're stuck there sitting somewhere and reading a book, I was like, I don't travel enough to be able to do that. So in London, yes, you're in the tube and you're reading a newspaper or maybe reading somebody else's newspaper. But why would you read if you can do other things while still consuming information? So that's in terms of reading. When I'm alone and I've got nothing to do, which is most of my day, I spend my time on YouTube. And my daily average is probably 3.5 hours.
Oh, that's a lot. Yeah,
that is a lot.
What do you watch?
So when I got YouTube Premium, I was very happy because I was like, I'm watching too many adverts. I need to stop this, and it's only like 200 rubles. So it's like, yes, let's get YouTube Premium and stop all of the ads. And the type of content, it's all business related, politics. I get a few Russian videos recommended from time to time. I really like Stop Ham. I don't know why, but it's just like this Russian thing of not driving, where you're supposed to drive and go and park your car on the sidewalk. It's just it's so foreign for me, but for Russians it's like, yeah, so what, there's no parking spaces, I'll just park here. I'm not in the way. I'm just like, yeah, but you're not allowed. That you're breaking the law. So have you heard of Stop Ham?
Yeah, I've watched it like 10 years ago or something.
Yeah, and I'm still watching it. I began watching it 10 years ago and I'm still watching it.
I'm surprised that they're still alive. Like, because there's so many conflicts.
Outside of like, so within Russian content, it would be Stop Ham and Artyom Lebedev.
In English, like,
English,
can you name a few channels which you watch?
So English would be Solving the Money Problem, which is a guy who's an investor in Tesla. So he's one of the guys where I get my news from. What else? Well, I watch the Joe Rogan podcast from time to time. I'm definitely subscribed to the BBC, CNBC, some spiritual channels, some channels which monitor the sun's activity, slow-mo guys. I mean, a few Let's Plays as well from time to time. So it's most of it is business, politics, and a little bit of like games, maybe. Gaming technology.
Sure.
Go for it. Sun activity, yeah. The sun, yes. So there is a channel which daily reviews the sunspots on the sun. They have multiple cameras pointing at the sun at all times, and you can see the sunspots and the sun, the black, well, it's not a black hole, but it's a coronal hole on the sun. And then when you get two coronal holes close to each other, you get a CME, which is a magnetic eruption of some kind. And
does it have a serious impact on
yes. So the sun's activity has a direct impact on our weather, on our magnetic field, on the temperature, of course, of our planet, and there are other things that can happen. So basically, for me, one of the scariest things that can actually happen in the near future is a big coronal mass ejection, CME, coronal mass ejection. In that case, in a scenario where we do get a coronal mass ejection, all of our electrical equipment will sort of get destroyed because it will burn. We had a similar event in 1890 something, but our electrical infrastructure wasn't as developed, so it wasn't as a big of a catastrophe. Whereas now, we're all pretty much fucked if we get a coronal mass ejection and it fries all of our computer chips and everything. Yeah, we're not going to have a fun few years.
For how long?
That's for how long? What?
It's gonna destroy, crash our.
So we will probably we'll need a few years because you need to redo all of the. What are they called? This not the circuit boards, but the electricity stations. They'll need to do a lot of maintenance on the electrical stations.
Do they predict that it's going to happen in the near future?
It can happen at any moment. So it's basically that's why they are monitoring the sun to see if there are CMEs happening all the time. It's just that they fly in different directions and they never hit us. There was one a couple of years ago which was pretty strong and it just clipped us. But nothing really strange happened, and a few people reported like migraines and stuff.
Is there any way to build the kind of shield?
Yes, there are shields. So, do you know EMP? What an EMP is?
Well, yeah.
So an EMP is a army weapon where it's an electromagnetic pulse, and it destroys all of the electricity. So, do you remember the Matrix?
Yeah.
Remember in the ship, they press the EMP because it destroys all of the electrical circuits. So that thing can happen from the sun, and it will travel for a little bit, then it will hit us, and then we're going to get hit. And there are certain equipments which do have shielding from an EMP. So there are tanks that cannot be hurt or damaged by an EMP, but most things in production do not have EMP protection or CME protection. CME protection.
Okay, let's get back to our like English topics. Let's talk about grammar. Like, what do you think about grammar in general? Like, is it important to study grammar, and how much time should you dedicate to studying grammar in comparison with like studying speaking and practicing all other skills?
So I would say that you should pay some attention to grammar. Grammar is nowhere near the most important thing. There are way more important things to do than to learn grammar, but grammar has to be a part of some lessons because certain things need certain explanations, concrete explanations, like in maths. So most of my grammar are formulas. So the same way as you would learn in maths, a squared plus b squared equals c squared, you learn that in English, passive voice in the simple tense would be to be plus verb in the third column or verb with an ed. So I was killed, I am killed, I will be killed are all examples of passive voice. And that's just a formula that you have to learn. We talk about other bits and pieces that are connected to passive voice, but that's at the very beginning. I do it so that the student has a certain understanding of why we talk the way we do, and then it's all practice. So I put them into situations where they have to use passive voice, and if they make a mistake, I would just say, listen, you know this, passive voice, what is the formula? They spend some time. They think about it, then they give me the correct answer. A few months later, they make a mistake in passive voice again. No problems. We just repeat it once, or rehearse it, revise it. Yeah, we revise it once more, and then you move on. So grammar is important, but doing only grammar sucks. It's boring. Yeah, grammar is boring, but you need practice and you need to spend time on grammar, because otherwise you're going to sound as somebody who's not as educated. So we know that he isn't, they aren't, but I am not, there's no sort of contraction for am not. You can't say I amn't happy. You say I'm not happy. But the proper word, which is not grammatically accepted, is ain't. So ain't is am not, is not, are not. I ain't happy. He ain't happy. She ain't happy. We ain't happy. Which sounds like good English, but there's no. Like you just end up sounding like a working class person, and there's nothing wrong sounding like a working class person. But with me, somebody who is a carrier of the received pronunciation accent, I value received pronunciation and posh English more than your what is it, Cockney. Like people who speak Cockney, I don't have anything against you, but you're not speaking English. And people who use the American accents and American words, again, we're all adults here. We're not adults, we're adults, and we don't have to argue, but American is just simplified English.
Again, the same question, like how much time we should dedicate to grammar, like in your opinion?
If we have 10%, because there are so many things that you have to do. And for me, most of my students, the question that they hear the most is, what do you want to do? Because I can do so many things with you. We can do reading, we can do translations, we can do games, we can do descriptions of images, we can read an article, we can watch a video, we can, like, there are so many activities, but what I need to know is, what do you need? So of course I do tests from time to time to see where a student has gaps, and I try to fill those gaps, but most of the time I concentrate on the specific needs of the specific student. That's why I call myself a language consultant.
Not a teacher.
Yeah, I'm not a teacher. It's like, and I don't teach those who don't want to learn. So I'm very picky with my students. But those who do learn, they rarely stop learning with me. And I've got students who've been with me for many years, and I have students who come to Kaluga from other cities just so that they can have a lesson with me.
Do you have a special method of teaching grammar?
The method is theory, examples, practice, and patience. It's like you're gonna remember it, whether you remember it on the first day or whether you remember it on the 100th day. I don't care. It's like as long as we practice something enough, we will see the results. Yeah.
Okay, what does it mean for you to know a language?
My father once said that for somebody to truly know a language, you should be able to speak with children, with small children. Like if you understand what small children are saying and you can speak with small children, then you know English. The second method is if you can understand a drunk person. So if you're in the bar with somebody and you understood everything he said, you know the language. So if you can drink with somebody and speak their language, and if you can speak to a child, then yeah, you probably know the language. That's a funny answer, and it always comes to my head first. But for me, nobody knows any languages 100%, because the vocabulary is constantly growing. There's slang, there's urban dictionaries, so the urban language. So I would say that I know a lot of English, I know a lot of Russian, but neither of my languages are complete and perfect. And as long as you can say what you need to say, then you know English. If you only need to say pizza with pepperoni and cheese and no mushrooms, then you know how to speak English. If you only need to say, give me your documents, or where is your visa, then yeah, you know how to use the language in your communicational needs. But nobody knows any language perfectly.
With regard to your former example, when you have to understand the drunk person or some funny way, how do you think, how much time does it take to develop this ability to understand?
Well, I know of a case study where 2 university students, they spent 2 years traveling around the world, and they went to 4 different countries. Now, one of them was definitely China. The other would have been somewhere in Europe, and there were 2 other languages. Basically, these guys wanted to see if they can learn a language to an extent where they can have a conversation with a native speaker. And they achieved that. So by the end of the 2 years, they have picked up 4 languages. But what they did is they traveled to the country. So they came, let's say they came to China. They both used dictionaries and translators. And day 1 would be looking through the dictionary, trying to say good morning to each other. Day 30 times 6, 180. Yeah, that sounds correct. So day 180, they were able to have a conversation with somebody on the street. But there are examples of people who live in London for 10 years and don't speak a word of English, just because they were surrounded by their community and by their speakers. So you can apparently learn a language sufficiently enough in half a year if you surround yourself and if you immerse yourself within the culture and the language. But if you're learning 5 words a day, well, that's better than learning 5 words a week, but that's different.
So it depends.
You need a need. If you have the need to learn the language, you will.
Depends on person. But 2 years
for 4 languages. So half a year for a language, apparently. It's well, we've got examples.
You know, this advertisement that you may just study English to learn to speak for half a year, for 3 months.
Yeah, that's bullshit. No, it's like, learn English in 1 hour, learn English in 2 weeks, learn English in half a year. No, you're not going to learn English. You're going to learn some phrases and maybe a few tricks. But if you're afraid of speaking with somebody in English, then you're going to be afraid of speaking with someone in English. That's why...
So practice.
Yes. You have a lovely phrase in Russian which loosely translates to repetition is the mother of education, of learning. Repetition is the mother of learning, and that truly is the case, especially with younger students. So the younger the students, the more repetition they need. And out of my experience, the most adequate age for somebody to begin learning English. So if you want to go to a country and live in a country and learn a language just by being in that country, you can do that from whatever age. But from the age of about 14 to 13, the child's brain is developed enough to be able to comprehend complex grammar and to actually begin working towards the exam. Whereas when I have a 5-year-old, I'm just doing vocabulary. They just need to hear, like I read stories to my students. They repeat after me so that they can listen and say words in English without understanding what it is. But at least their mouths and their tongues are getting used to this language. And I mean, that's how children bloody learn, is they listen to other people and they repeat. So my children have probably said bye-bye millions of times, but whatever. And yeah, with the older the child is, we start learning letters. We actually learn the letters and not just A, B, C, D, E, F, G. It's like there are many children in Russia which can give you the English alphabet, but if you show them a picture of like H, they have no idea what that letter is. Like you just show them a letter and they're like, no idea. Another funny thing in Russian is like, can you count from 0 to 10? Yes. 1, 2, no. From well, you say in Russian, с нуля до 10, and you're like, no. Like children know 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, but they don't know O or 0. I was like, how? Next, question.
What do you think about the role of English in globalization?
Well, with globalization being a concept where you unite everyone, you need a common language to be able to communicate. So since English is such an easy language to master compared to most others, and it has a lot of similarities to at least the European languages, I guess it is the language of globalization.
So it's like in how many years we all are going to speak English, like around the globe?
I'll be surprised if... So I'm sure that everyone on Mars is going to speak English. I've got a feeling that you kind of have to speak English if you're going to Mars. But on planet Earth, 100% of population?
Yeah, maybe like a second language. Not necessarily
years.
that everybody speaks English, but maybe it's like second language and everybody knows it.
Well, there is a possibility of people receiving chips in their things like Neuralink. There is a possibility of people getting chips which will be able to allow them to communicate in many different languages, not just English.
Without studying.
Without really thinking, just like you press a button and wow, I know Japanese. And you think in your language, but you say...
In Matrix, I know Kung Fu, yeah.
I know Kung Fu, show me. Well, and you just start using... the future of education and languages is so interesting. I personally can't wait until we get virtual reality glasses in every classroom. Imagine how fantastically interesting physics and history and geography will be, and literature. I mean, even literature. Imagine how interesting those subjects will be when you just put on a pair of VR glasses and you're able to see history, to do and see, take part in all of these wonderful subjects.
It's like a movie and you play a main character.
Yeah.
Just going, maybe even feeling something, not just seeing it, but experiencing.
That's going to be awesome. So schools with virtual reality are, and I don't think that they'll last for a long time due to the chip, but learning in that kind of environment is probably one of the coolest things I can imagine.
What do you think? Like, assuming that there is a kind of competition between languages, I don't think that every language wants to perpetuate itself in the future, and English now it's the most common language, but 200 years ago, for example, there was French and English were not so well known. What makes language powerful, and what makes it great, and what makes it like better at competition with other languages?
I guess the less complications you have in a language, the easier it is to probably learn it. But numbers always win. So if you're going to have a big quantity of people speaking a language, whether it is Chinese or English, whichever language is used by the most amount of people is going to be the one that sort of survives and moves on. I mean, it's very likely that we're all going to be speaking Chinese in 200 years. You never know.
He's going to win this competition.
just
or
by
Russian.
power.
Why not Russian? Maybe Russian is going to become universal language.
It's too difficult. Like,
Russian. You think it's difficult
it's
language?
It's so difficult. I'm sorry, but why do you guys have to complicate things like that? It's like, first подержи, рада, all of these things are just, they make no sense in my head, and sometimes, like, I make up stuff just because I'm not happy with Russian. It's like, where is rain going? The rain and snow is not going anywhere. You should just be saying дождится and снежится. Like, where is the rain going? And sometimes when children, like, they translate from Russian to English, like, literally, the rain is going. It's like, where is it going? What is wrong with you? No, we have a verb, to rain. There are a lot of funny moments between English and language.
So complexity in this sense isn't something good.
No, of course not. No, you need something simple and something that has more.
Well, like there's like, in Russian there's a kind of proverb that we have Russian, and there's working Russian and kind of bad Russian. And bad Russian, like, you may express everything with just 3 words. Need more than 3 words and you may say almost everything. So
same in English, you have all of these dialects.
Just even 1 word. But like in Russian it's more, it's an adjective, it's a noun, it's a verb, adverb. You may use it in all forms, and they're like, literally, when you listen to people, especially like worker class, some of them will just use few words, and their vocabulary is just
enough for
allows them to explain all things what they are doing. And
sure.
That's super. Okay, do you agree with the statement that people who know 2 languages tend to be smarter than those who don't?
People who know 2 languages have a greater access to information. And when you have greater access to information, you have the opportunity to be more knowledgeable. Now, what was your exact question? People who know 2 languages tend to be what?
Smarter.
We need to define the word smart, because you can be street smart or book smart.
Let's put it in a different way. Let's suppose that, like, my question is whether or not studying a foreign language develops your brain, develops your mind, makes you faster, more flexibility and neuroplasticity.
I would absolutely agree with the fact that knowing a second language benefits your brain and your intellect, and there are also studies which show that people who know a second language they are less likely to develop Alzheimer's.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe Alzheimer's and dementia, or maybe just Alzheimer's. And it's like, okay, that's a good bonus, but I didn't learn English not to get Alzheimer's. I just learned English because I thought that I need to, because I need to talk to people and get things done. And if you're not able to communicate correctly or communicate with a specific language, then you're not going to really achieve much.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Do you think that there's a big difference between studying English for thinking and studying it for communication?
Well, I guess the vocabulary is going to be different. And when you're thinking, you would probably need to learn more words that make the silences shorter. So words like yeah, yeah. Well, you need those sort of bad words in your vocabulary so that you can give yourself some time to think between your thoughts. And again,
you may learn just silent pauses.
Yeah, if you're happy with that. Yeah.
But it's like this idea, thinking in a foreign language. Do you think it's possible just to switch your language and
practice?
To shift it and
practice. If you start by, okay, this is a window, that is a wall, the wall is black. If we're talking about that kind of thinking, or thinking about your life in English.
Well, thinking about making models of the future, about your past, trying to connect your experience, trying to describe your experience in English. Well, basically just studying not these forms of communication, not grammar, but studying yourself.
Okay, if you're talking about that kind of thinking, then it sounds to me like it's self-dialogue. Self-dialogue with... You're just practicing certain phrases and certain constructions that you would be using.
I would like to consider it as a kind of meditation. So you basically, when you meditate, what you do, you try to shut down your mind. You try to focus on the present moment. But here, you may start using English and use, it's like let's suppose you have body and you have your mind, and your mind works like in your native language. And then when you try to stop it, you have to use your native language to stop it. And it's like very unlikely that you are going to succeed. But when you use a foreign language, you create a kind of system or structure which controls or like makes your native language just shuts it down. And then you learn how to describe your thoughts in this language. So you basically, whenever you try to think in Russian, you just stop yourself by using English and pay attention to what's going on. And you're trying to be present, trying to describe your thoughts.
Again, it's practice. It's no matter how you're using the language, if you start doing a certain exercise which repeats certain actions, then those actions are going to be easier. Like one of the things that I used to do is ask, like, what do you hate the most in English? And some children would say that, oh, it's reading. Some children would say, oh, it's listening, and whatever. And usually they name the thing that they spent the least time on. So then don't
want to practice it.
Yeah, so you've got no practice in something. You're not confident about it, and that's why you don't want to do it, and you feel like that's your worst point. Then I just have to try to connect with the student. And so if it's a boy, then sometimes, oh, what kind of sport do you do? Or what do you do in your free time? What do you like to do? And they would say, oh, I play basketball. Oh, I play video games. I was like, are you good at that? I was like, yes, I'm very good at this. And I was like, is that because you spent a lot of time doing that? Well, yes, it is. And I was like, did you know that you need to spend 10,000 hours on a particular subject in order to be a master of it? And I'm like, whoa, that makes sense. It's like, yes, that's why you're a master at basketball, but you're pretty crap at reading because you have not spent even 10 hours reading. So let's read more.
Is there something that you don't like about the language, about English?
So the thing that I like doing the least, there are there's positives about everything. I would say one of my favorite things would probably be listening to how somebody is reading something and writing down the mistakes. So unlike most teachers, I am able to control myself. And when a student makes a mistake, I don't just stop them and shout at them and correct them. I was like, okay, noted, you made a mistake in this word. So they would read a massive text for about 10 minutes, and then I'll give them 5 or 20 or 50 or 100 words. We spend some time with these words. We realize that some of the words could be read correctly just by using basic reading rules. And then the other words are repeated by me, then they're repeated by the students. I also work with the transcription, so you can always understand why is it that we pronounce this word. I guess my most hated part would be spelling French words which have a French origin. So if someone needs to write down a word which has a Q-U-I-O-S, like turquoise, it took me a week to remember how to spell the word turquoise. Color? Yes, it's a color. It's this very like Tiffany. Do you know the company Tiffany? It's it's a bluish, very light blue, bieruzowy turquoise, and it's like, yeah, it took me at least a week to remember turquoise, which is like T-U-R, whatever after that, but I can do it maybe.
Okay, your top 3 reasons for studying English.
I had to. It's like I didn't have a reason to study English. It's just that I did just by speaking and listening to other people. So my top 3 reasons why somebody should study English.
Yeah, let's use a different example, like French or German or Chinese.
Why I learned those languages. Okay,
yeah,
so I learned one of the reasons why I learned German was because I decided, why don't I know German?
Yeah, there was a song you mentioned.
And there was a song, it was a song that I really liked. It was basically rap, but in German, and it sounded pretty good. The reason why I learned Japanese, because I would really like to visit Japan. The reason why I studied Korean, because I know that it's the easiest Asian language. The reason I studied French was because I didn't want to study German at school, and I knew nothing about Spanish, and French kind of seemed cool and it sounded funny. And I guess that's all of my languages.
Okay. What would you say to those who want to study a language but don't have enough motivation?
Well, so they say they want to study a language.
They'll say like next week I'm gonna start next.
But they don't actually. I guess for them, like any person who needs to do something but isn't doing it, they should probably sit down and write a list why they need to learn English, sort of to give themselves...
In English. Write this list in English.
Well, yeah, you can write this list in English, or you can write the list in Russian.
So the beginning of the studying.
You basically give yourself... Why do we start any diet? Like when you want to quit your diet, you should think, no, I want to be healthy. I want to look better. I want to stop having problems with my digestive system, or I want to have more energy. Same with English. You should have a number of reasons why you need to do it. And every time you wake up in a bad mood and you're like, I can skip English, you look at those reasons and you just do something, even if it's 5-10 minutes, but every day, 5 minutes in a day is nothing. 5 minutes every day for a year is a lot. And even if you spend 5 minutes doing anything related to English, you're going to be much further than if you just do something for 1 hour a week.
Yeah, for 10 years, it's like you may just learn one word every day for 10 years. Your vocabulary will be... You'll
be much better than if you don't. And begin today, or begin within the sooner you begin, the better off you are. There's this cool quote that about like starting something today so tomorrow you're ahead, but whatever.
Related question: why do people fail at studying English?
They
Why
think
they
it's
give
too
up?
hard. So they think it's too hard. They don't have someone like me who's able to guide them through all of this mess and to show them it's like, okay, so we need to do a little bit of this today, then tomorrow we'll do a little bit of reading, then we'll do a little bit of speaking. I don't do much writing with my students. I guess I don't have anyone who's getting prepared for an exam right now. So I've got people who are doing exams next year, but this year we're not doing anything writing in written, which I guess is a bad thing, but people study with me so that they can speak English, not so that they can write in English. And I don't see many situations where people will be writing in English, because even if you have to write something, just turn on the voice recognition and speech to type, and just use the speech to text feature.
Yeah, but sometimes, for example, I'm writing like my diary every day.
Because you know how to, and you've done it. But those who haven't and don't like doing it...
Yeah, the idea is that it takes maybe an hour to write a page. And when I speak, I also speak fast. And if I just speak and think aloud, I may write like 5, 10, 15 pages an hour. But it's going to be like the quality of these pages is almost nothing.
It's your first draft. Then you go over it.
Yeah, in the same time, it very helps when I just first I think about something aloud, I talk about something, and then I sit and write. So I already know. Like I take a topic. For example, this week we discussed propaganda, and I'm preparing topics just by talking about them without having any knowledge. And I'm always like, what can I say? Kind of brainstorming. I'm allow my mind to wander in all possible directions, and then I may find something interesting, and then I sit down and write, and it takes maybe an hour just to write one article, one page. You said that failure is kind of like people need somebody else who is gonna
guide them,
help them. But do you think it's impossible to study on your own without
a map? How do you how do you get where you need to be without a map?
I don't know.
It's like if you find a map, if you find a course that is specifically designed for somebody who's studying by themselves, which is something that I'm kind of doing right now. So from the new year, I'm going to start a course, which is because I don't want to teach hundreds of people anymore. I want to teach thousands of people. So an online course, which is sort of aimed at every level. Well, it's basically aimed for somebody who does not know English at all, but it's formed in a way where you are finding out things for the first time, or it could be just revision. So there's going to be a bit of grammar, there's going to be a bit of rules, a bit of fun facts, and yeah, we'll see what really happens from it. But I've had this idea of a course for the last couple of years, and I've had the course in my head. I have most of it written down, but it's not really
organized.
It's not organized into content, and it's not really a course yet. And I understood that, if I spend a year or 2 years creating this course, then I will have it for the rest of my life.
Yeah, now it's like you have an access to the whole world. You may just...
Exactly, yeah. It's like the book that I wrote. It's like you write the book once, you release it, and that's it. You can give it to people to read.
Can you linger a little bit about like on your book?
My book is self-help and spirituality and psychology.
Why did you start writing this book?
Because I felt the need to share the information that I've learned by reading a lot of books, by meditating for a very long time, and by using a lot of different substances.
What was your age like at that moment when you wrote the book?
Early 20s, so 4 or 5 years ago, maybe 6 years ago, and it's published on Amazon.
Does it earn you some income?
I might have sold a couple of copies, but most of the copies I've given out, and a few of the times I've read I've translated the book to a couple of my ex-girlfriends.
Yeah, okay, we'll leave a link
you,
in the description.
You don't have to. But, yeah.
So
It's basically when I was really, really, really high, and when I was reading the Quran and the Bible at the same time, and all of these other spiritual texts.
In English? In English?
In English, yes, yes, in English. I sort of realized I just came up with a theory, and I started sharing it with people, and some people started crying, and like they took it very close to heart, and they understood what I was saying. So I was like, oh, maybe I need to share this with more people. And it ended up being a booklet rather than a book, but I think the information within it is so concise and so to the point that it doesn't need to be 100 pages.
How many pages are there?
Probably 20 or 30.
20 or 30, okay.
Yeah. It's a booklet.
Let's talk a little bit about our speaking club. Like, you are visiting the club since, I guess, 2018. First it came, I remember, it was the autumn of 2018. But then... Like,
it was a totally different place, totally different thing. And I just really wanted to have somebody whom I can speak with in English, but in a much higher advanced level than what I do on my lessons.
But how about our current...
Oh, it's much better. There's more people to talk to. There are more people for you to listen to. Well, there are more people to listen to you, and there are more people to listen to. And it's nice to get different perspectives. Being somebody who doesn't consider himself Russian, it's sometimes it's interesting to hear what Russians think and what Russians say. And I guess I'm still quite young, but I've got so much life experience, work experience, and all sorts of experiences that I'm way more mature for my age, and people usually are nowhere near my age whenever they try to guess it. So
what do you like the most in our speaking club?
I like the fact that it gives us an opportunity to think about life questions, so that you don't have to do this by yourself or with a joint.
What would we change if you were a leader of the club?
I would change being the leader. I enjoy being a guest, and yeah, just being like. Recently, I became the person who... Well, I've actually been this person for quite some time, but recently I became the person who everyone turns to if they've forgotten a word. And it's like, how do you say this in English? And it's like this. And then sometimes if somebody uses something in Russian, I'm like, what is that? What is that Russian word? But, yeah.
What were your favorite topics we discussed?
I'm sure my favorite topics are yet to be discovered.
Okay, name.
But
just
I'm
one.
looking forward to. I'm looking forward to discussing women.
Name just one which we already discussed.
One moment. No, one moment. I know this. Suffering.
That was almost a year ago.
That was one of the most memorable topics. Suffering and. Yeah, I mean, every topic is reasonably interesting.
Okay, thank you very much, Andy.
Thank you for having me. Thank you. It was nice. I love listening to podcasts, and I love having conversations with people, especially if they're able to listen and willing to listen. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Leave a like, subscribe, ring the bell, whatever.
I'm gonna tell it later. It was an English podcast. If you like this video and want to support us, subscribe to this channel, share this video with your friends, click the like button, and write comments down below. Thank you for listening. Bye-bye.